and making it relevant to our day to day. So I'm learning a bunch of things about data engineering these days, and almost none of the marketechture. I love this new word, the marketechture documents
What is
talk
this?
about the marketing
Like
plus
marketing.
architecture.
Yeah, I was
Oh
gonna say
my
marketing
God.
architecture. Is this the thing now? Okay.
Marketecture, they don't provide that context, and unless so it's so interesting. I'm an average person who's trying to understand what's going on. I have been in the industry for 18 years. The stuff that I've seen myself in my own eyes evolve with the context of the problems. I get right away. Of course, this is trying to solve that thing. If I wasn't there for whatever reason, it's so hard to understand. Like, why is Spark? Why did someone make this Spark? And you see the videos. If you say why a Spark, you will see 200 different videos that try to give you that context. I just find it.
So sorry, as someone who doesn't know what Spark is, what is Spark?
It's just the name of a technology that is right now. If you're in the data engineering, that's your tool of choice for a lot of different things.
Okay. Okay.
But it solves a specific thing, and it came as a result of a bunch of challenges with Hadoop. And there's a lot of, and where did Hadoop come from? And Google and MapReduce, all of that context for the stuff that I've felt with my own skin, and I had a skin in that game at the time. It's just very easy to understand. For the stuff that for whatever reason, I wasn't involved. I watched 200 videos and I still don't get it. Like, I can say that to you, I can pretend that I know it, but it just something is off. Like, it doesn't. It's similar to reviewing World War history with this date. This guy was shot. I was like, what? Why? What happened? What was before? And there are very, very few people who can provide those kind of context heart to heart. And that information is gold. I cannot find one right now for the data engineering. It doesn't exist. All architecture, all sales pitches, all bias and agenda, and different views on the narrative. And I cannot find the actual truth in a Spark was just an example. It's really hard to find the truth in something that shouldn't be that hard, right? It's very interesting.
Sorry, do you mean you can't find the purpose behind data engineering? Is that what you mean?
The purpose behind why the industry is in this shape today.
In this shape. Well,
Yeah.
I have
with the specific tools and yeah, what purpose or what problem are they trying to solve?
With the tools or with just data engineering? I was thinking with data engineering.
So the analogy is similar to the World War story. You can say, this date, this thing happened, or you can spend 10 years studying what was the context that led to this. And Dan Carroll in Hardcore History does a good summarization of that in 1 hour. And without that context, you are a little bit lost. It feels dry. It feels like studying math, calculus without understanding the history and context behind it. The same thing happens in the land of in my personal life right now as I'm going through data engineering, because a lot of the architecture and the websites and the tools are talking about the facts. Here's how you start a session, here's how you query, here's how you do this thing. And they don't provide you, this is what was it before this was the problem. And do you even agree that was a problem? Maybe you don't even agree that was a problem. If you agree that was a problem, here's your solution. And they try to do that, but it's very weak. And when it's weak, it just doesn't connect with you. Am I making sense, Dave?
Yeah. I seem to have like my answer to data engineering in general. It's kind of a culmination of humanity's desire to try to solve the crystal ball problem.
I like that. I want the ball.
Can't be solved.
Tell me what's going. It can't be solved.
But it can't be solved, right?
Spark. Have you heard of a Spark? That's your miss.
Well, that's why I asked what Spark is, because usually, like, I guess I'm obviously not living it day to day, but when I was exposed to it, it was Hadoop, right? It was
exactly.
the rage, back then. But now I get to Spark. So
Exactly. Hadoop is so 2010. Like that word is gone.
I mean, I did, I love to maybe steer this conversation on a little bit of a tangent, just because I think both of you guys would provide an interesting take on this. I noticed this pattern where it's a bit like culture wars. It's a bit like identity politics, where in the tech world, there is this pattern of, new technology, tools, frameworks. And it was just, like about who could kind of rush into those things first, and then kind of build a like a following, a culture, identity around it, and then trying to create these tribes of Java versus Python, or okay, maybe that's not a good Python versus Perl, fine, like maybe that's a thing. And then it just became quite pedantic, and I mean, just personally speaking, I hated those like, I hate conversations of tabs versus spaces. I hate conversations of using verbs or not using verbs or whatever. I don't know, like let me just tee that up there. What are your thoughts on that?
Go for it, Sina. Yeah, I mean, for me, technology is just a tool. And it's not to say that tools don't have value or that one tool isn't better than another, but yeah, tools solve problems, right? So it's better to like actually understand the problem that you're trying to solve. Like, because if you don't understand the problem, you might choose the wrong tool as well, right? You might choose a tool thinking that, oh, it's going to solve this problem. Like, look, it says so right there on the website, on the box. And in fact, you don't actually understand the problem you're trying to solve. And so when you eventually realize that this tool falls short in a certain area, oh shit, now what? Like, can you still solve the problem, or were you dependent on this tool essentially to do that for you? We definitely put a lot of emphasis on tools. I think there's two things at play. One, as engineers, we can often get attached to tools because we align our careers around them. Let's say I'm really, in love with Swift and iOS, and then, my company might want to switch to a different framework, maybe React Native, for example. I'd be writing TypeScript all day instead of Swift and using Xcode. It can almost seem like an attack on my career. Oh shit, maybe I won't have a job in 3 years. But still, like, you're passionate about that technology, and some other company is still using that technology. You feel like, well, this company is stupid, or these developers, they don't know what they're talking about. They're clueless. And so it becomes this war, in a sense, of ideology. Because what are you going to say? My tool is not dumb. Look, like, Google uses my tool, or some other giant company uses my tool, so my tool must be good.
Sina, your thoughts?
I think it comes from tribalism, right? Like, we love to be in a tribe and feel secure. Same as we Canadians, we Americans, we Democrats, we Trump supporters, we Java developers has a thing, and people feel secure about it. And a lot of technologies came from different tribes, right? There was the origins of Microsoft and Apple and all of these things. You can trace it back to these small tribes of people who believe in certain values, and it will probably stay here, for Krishna's point, forever. Even in that view, there are different tribes of developers. Like, there is a tribe of people like Krishna who are emphasizing the building of things. Like, I don't care. I'm trying to build something. What I'm building, that's the thing that really matters. And probably there are other tribes that no. That's the thing that matters, because that will open up a bunch of new capabilities that you that's the real thing. For example, the blockchain, like now it's a new technology that we have created, so it matters. It doesn't matter the build thing, sure, a bunch of people will come and build stuff on top of it, but the tech is the most interesting part. I hate those conversations too. We have had a lot of these conversations before about having, even we had a sign in our startup back home, like no holy wars on the sign, on the thing. It's just a waste of time.
It's such a waste of time.
But having said all of that, having strong opinions in software engineering these days has value. Like if you have like this is why people like ThoughtWorks and Accentures and McKinsey's, these people can charge the premium. They can charge a premium because they say, I have a group of people who have very, very strong opinion about these specific stupid ideas that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But they all are aligned together. So they're not going to debate it. Is any of these ideas better than other ideas? Absolutely not. But you have a team of performant people who think in the same way and are going to row in the same way. So I'm going to charge you a lot of money per hour to give you that team.
Yeah.
Which is very, very interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll add one more piece. I think there can be tactical reasons, and maybe even like translates into strategic reasons for rallying around a technology, or why a company might promote their tool to no end and hopefully have other companies adopt it. And it just comes down to leverage. You know, the more people that are using your tool, the more you have a community behind it, the more software that's being written in that tool, the more open source software gets written in that tool, the more it justifies the existence of that tool. Like, what is it? What's Nassim Taleb's like Lindy
Lindy effect. Yeah.
Lindy
effect,
effect.
right? So it creates, it allows that technology to survive longer. So that's a good thing, right? Like if you think of Basecamp, creating Rails and then building this massive community around it. I mean, it's a tiny little company, but that was a huge strategic, I think, advantage for them that other people were building on their, framework. And so I think it probably not only invited more like it created a giant pool for them to pick from when they were hiring. It meant that more and more people, they didn't have to teach their specific framework to other people when they joined. They just could be productive right away. Yeah, and it just meant that their tool wasn't kind of falling out of style after 10 years or 5 years. And then, they're having to find a new technology to rewrite all their software. And they could just keep their technology evolving and getting better and better. So I think, for companies that think long term, there's 100% there's something to be gained from building an amazing technology and then having other people use it and build on top of it.
Very interesting. It's not just a bunch of religious fights. Actually, a religious fight is about the same thing. So a religious fight is also about leverage, right?
It's all the same.